Hello everyone, hope you all are doing well. Kindly confirm if you can hear me uh, or the video is buffering or there is something echo in the background. Kindly let me know in the chat box so that we can start the session. Is all good? Okay, let's get started. Uh, I welcome you all on the day 2 of our LWC Bootcamp, where we will be exploring about the building blocks of the web. Moreover, we'll be also deep diving into the HTML and the CSS part of the web technologies. Right? My name is Ankit Jain. I do have more than 10 years of experience in the Salesforce ecosystem, where I got an opportunity to work as a Salesforce architect as well as the Salesforce trainer. In my experience, I got an opportunity to work on the different aspects of the Salesforce, including the both configuration as well as on the customization. Also worked on the complex projects where there are kind of a complex work on the LWC as well as on the integration too. That's a quick intro about me. In case you folks likes to connect with me, I have put the three different scanners here where you can go and connect with me on the YouTube, on the LinkedIn as well as on the Telegram. The links will be available in the video description. In case you do have any queries during the session, post the session, you can post your question on the Telegram channel. You can also drop me a one-to-one message on the LinkedIn, or also you can put your question on the comment section. I'll make sure that I'll be responding to you. So let's get started with the today's session with the term called web building block. I hope that everyone at least have heard the term this HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Right? Basically this HTML, CSS and JavaScript, they are referred as the building blocks of the web technologies. With the help of these three HTML, CSS and the JavaScript, we can create a one complete website that will be responsive, that will with the help of which you can perform the different operations, right? These basic building blocks will be the base for the multiple frameworks which are available. With the help of these building blocks, you can create any website, you can create any component or any web component, not only on the lightning web component but also on the other frameworks as well, right? That's the reason they will be referred as the web building block. So let's try to decode this term. What is HTML, what is CSS and what is JavaScript? HTML basically stands for hypertext markup language. This HTML is basically used to structure your page. If you go and check any web page, this web page is structured with the help of this HTML. So the purpose of the HTML here is to go and construct your page. Right? Similarly, if you do have the CSS, CSS will be helpful in case you want to beautify your web page. The HTML, it will provide you the basic structure. But let's say you want to add some additional functionalities to your page. For example, you want to change the background color, you want to add the different color to the text, you want to make your web page quite responsive, right? In such scenarios, this CSS will be helpful. CSS basically stands for cascading style sheet, which will which will help you to modify the HTML element. Again, we'll be deep diving both HTML and the CSS today. Next one will be the JavaScript. With the help of JavaScript, you can change both HTML and the CSS. JavaScript is quite powerful, right? In the web technologies, which will allow you to calculate, manipulate, and validate the data coming from the HTML, right? For example, let's say a user have input some value, right? Or user wants to perform some automation. Again, the one way solution that we do have here is the JavaScript. Again, this basic JavaScript is the foundation for many other frameworks which are available in the market. Like if you see, I go and check the Angular JS or the React JS or the Node JS, all these frameworks are built on the top of this JavaScript. Again, we'll be diving into the JavaScript from the day 3 to day 10. So we'll be deep diving each and every web technology one by one down the line. Let me check. let's go and talk about the first one, that is HTML. Right? HTML basically, as I said, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So what is HTML basically? HTML is nothing but a document, as I said, which will help you to design the structure of your page. So your HTML, as I said, it's nothing but a document. It always starts with the HTML tag and it always ends with the slash HTML tag. Right? Another thing is all the HTML document, they always have this doc type HTML. This is basically mandatory from the HTML5 that you have to go and specify the doc type. Doc type stands for the document type, and here you have to let the browser know that the document type here is the HTML. Right? So you have to make sure that whenever you are creating the plain HTML file, the HTML file will always starts with the doc type followed by the HTML. After that, your starting tag will be the HTML and your final tag will be the HTML. Whatever the HTML that you have to write inside this HTML block. Right? So this HTML, body, H1P, they will be referred as the HTML elements. They will be referred as the HTML elements. So your HTML is basically divided into two parts. One is the head and second is the body. Right? So body is something that you are seeing on the page. Title or head is something that will be useful for the documentation purpose. Right? So there are two things. One is the head and second is the body in the HTML. So whenever you have to design your web page, you have to make sure that you are putting everything inside the body. In the header, we generally put the link to the CSS file, we put the linkage to the JavaScript file. Moreover, we also put the documentation details in the header part. Right? Let me move towards the next slide. Next slide stands for the HTML elements and the attributes. We understood that this is referred as the HTML file, right? But in this HTML file, this HTML, body, H1P, they will be referred as the elements. These elements are nothing but the building block of your HTML pages. So whenever you are creating the HTML page, you have to use the HTML elements to build that HTML page. Each HTML element will always starts with the start tag and it will always ends with the close tag. Let me get the pointer. So each your HTML element, it always starts with the start tag and it always ends with the end tag. And whatever the content that you have to write in between this tag. Right? Technically, the element is nothing but the collection of the start tag, end tag, and the content between them. For example, if I take you to the previous slide, as I said, H1 is the element, right? If you take this as an example, this H1 will be your starting tag. This hyphen H1 will be your ending tag, and whatever the content that you are putting, that will be the content of the H1. Right? So every HTML element, they follow a similar kind of a pattern. They do have the H1 tag as a starting tag. They do have the closing tag, and in between that you will go and put the content. So there are different types of HTML elements like H1, P, H1 element, P element. I will be talking about the frequently used HTML elements as well. Right? So let's go and see this on the browser, basically how we can go and create the HTML page on the VS Code, how we can go and define the different tag name, right? How we should go and write down the doc type there as well. So let me open the VS Code. So I hope after going over the day one of the bootcamp, everyone have installed the VS Code on their machine. Right? In case not, make sure that you are going over the day one video and installing the VS Code. I also put the link in the video's description as well, so you can take the link from the video and get that installed. Also on the day one bootcamp, I asked you to install the few extension, where one of the extension that I asked you to install is the live server. So you have to make sure that you are installing this extension as well. This extension will be very helpful to launch the local server on our machine. With the help of this extension, a local server will be launched and we can easily validate our HTML pages. So you have to also get this extension installed on your machine. Again, it is very easy. You just have to navigate to the extension block, type the live server here and get this extension installed on your machine. Right? So first let's go and create the project on the VS Code. To do that, you have to click on this Explorer section. As soon as you go and click on the Explorer section, you will be navigate to this location. Right here, you have to go and click on the Open folder. Now you can go and create any new folder. So I am creating the new folder on my desktop. So I do have one master folder available. Inside this, I am creating a new folder and I am giving the name of the folder as the web technology, right? So like this, you can also go and create a new folder on your machine. Inside this, I am creating another folder because I want to use this folder again as a master folder for the different examples that I have to cover in the bootcamp. So let me go and put this folder as the HTML folder. I'm just naming this file as the HTML file. And I am, or let me rename these to HTML files. And I'm selecting this folder and clicking on select folder here. You can see this folder is opened on my VS Code now. You can see HTML file. This is the name that we have given, right? And in that one, now we can go and create the HTML files. So to create the HTML file inside this folder, you have to go and click on the first icon. There are multiple icons available in the Explorer section. So you have to make sure that you are clicking on the first icon. This first icon will help you to create the HTML file. Another next icon, it will help you to create the folder. In, for example, let's say inside this HTML file, in case you want to create another folder, then you can take this option, right? I want to directly create the HTML file inside this. So I'm taking the first option here, that is the new file. Now here you can go and give the name to your file. So let's say here I am giving the name to this file as the index.html. Again, you can give any name. For this example, I am giving the name here as the index.html. Only thing that is mandatory here is you have to make sure that you are putting the extension as the .html. Right now, your HTML file is available. Now, in the VS Code, we do have the support to create the basic template of the HTML file, right? You do not have to go and start creating the file from the scratch by typing the doc type as HTML. After that, you should go and type the HTML, something like this, right? As I said, HTML consists of two parts. One is the head and second is the body, right? You don't have to go and do all these things in the VS Code. VS Code have a shortcut directly to create this kind of a document type. Again, in case you are comfortable, definitely you can follow this approach and you can create the HTML file. But the way that I prefer to create a quick HTML file is just by using this exclamatory symbol. So what you have to do here is on the VS Code, you just have to go and type the exclamatory symbol here. As soon as you go and type the exclamatory symbol, right, the IntelliSense will propose you two different options. You have to make sure that you are using the first option here. As soon as you are taking the first option, the VS Code will insert this dummy code for you, right? So you just go and select that option. You can see the basic HTML file is created with all the details, right? It does have the head section. Also, it does have the body section as well, right? Now in the header section here, you can see here we do have the title. Title is generally used to give the name to your web page, right? For example, let's say I am giving the title here as LWC Bootcamp day 2, right? This is the title that I am giving, right? In the header section, in the body section, you actually go and put what you want to what you actually want on the web page. For example, let's say here on the web page, I want to put one message that welcome from Tech Journey with Ankit. This is the message that I want to put here, right? So this is how basically the HTML file will be constructed, where in the header you put the documentation details, right? You put the linkage, and in the body you go and actually put the elements. So this P is nothing but an element which is having the starting tag, which is also having the closing tag as well. Let me go and check in case we do have any questions. Folks, if you do have any question, you can use the chat box and you can let me know what all questions you do have. Okay, now Okay, I'm seeing few comments that the voice is echoing. I'm not sure is it for everyone or it is still echoing. Yeah, but I will take care of it. No worries. Let's move forward. And we'll go and see this HTML page in the browser now. To launch this HTML page in the browser, again, there are different things that we can do. We can navigate to the Explorer, do the right click and open this file in the Chrome, right? But the easiest way that we can launch this file is, as we have already installed the live server extension here, you just go and check your footer section in the VS Code. You will find the go live option here, right? You just have to go and click on this go live option. That is the one way. Or another way that you can do here is do the right click on your file that you have created and select the option open with live server. As soon as you go and take this option, your file will get opened on the live server. For example, if you go and check this file, your file is opened on the local server. This live server have launched one local server on your machine, and you can see the file on your machine here. This is the title name that we have given LWC Bootcamp to. Let me put both of them side by side so that you guys can correlate in a much better way. Let me also zoom this. Right? You can see here, this is the LWC Bootcamp Day 2. This is the title that we have given, right? And this is the body where we have put this one P tag here. Right? This is how you go and create the HTML file and define the elements in the HTML file. Now you can go and define any different types of elements. P is just a one element which stands for the paragraph. Similarly, you can go and define another element as the H1 which stands for the heading. Right? Let's say I want to give the heading here as Tech Journey with Ankit. And as we are running the local server on our machine, what will happen is as soon as we go and save this file, the local server will go and refresh the page. Right? We do not have to manually go and refresh the page here. We just have to save the changes on our VS Code and the page is automatically refreshed. You can see that this is the text that we have put on our HTML file, and this text is available on the browser as well. Right? This is how you can use the VS Code to launch the HTML file with the live server. Let's go back to the PPTs again. So we have discussed about the HTML element, and we have also seen how we can use the HTML elements practically. Right? Now, next thing that we have to go and discuss is the HTML attributes. So what is HTML attributes now? All the HTML elements, or most of the HTML elements, they do have the attributes. Attributes generally provide the additional information about the element. What is attribute? Attribute is something which generally provide the additional information about the HTML elements. That is referred as the HTML attributes. Another key point about the attributes are always specified in the start tag. Right? In the HTML element, we discussed that we do have the start tag and we do have the end tag. Right? Here you have to make sure that whenever you are using the HTML attributes are always specified in the start tag. You will never put the HTML attributes in the end tag. And whenever we are defining the attributes, right, we have to always define the attributes in the form of key and value. Right? We have to always go and define the attributes in the form of key and value, where key will be your attribute name and value will be your attribute value. Where key will be your attribute name and value will be the attribute value. So let's go and see how we can use the HTML attributes then on the VS Code. Let me go and launch the VS Code again. Let me also keep the browser open. Right? So for example, this is my VS Code and this is my browser. Now, as I said, whenever we have to go and define the attributes, we have to make sure that we are defining the attributes inside the start tag. We have to go and define the attributes inside the start tag. Most of the HTML elements, they do support the common attributes like the style, class, right? Title, name, these are the common attributes which will be supported by the most of the HTML element. In case you want to check the attributes of a particular HTML tag, for example, let's say I'm not sure what all the different attributes supported by the p tag. What I will go here, I will go to the Google and look here p attributes, p HTML p element attributes, right? And here you will get the list of the different attributes supported by the p tag. You will see here, you will get the list of the different attributes supported by the p tag, right? So here, let me go and check the attribute list that they have shared. Let me go and open these attributes. Right? You can see the p tag. It does support. Okay, as per my knowledge, it does support the style attribute and the class attribute. I will use one of the attribute here. You can also explore the documentation to look out for the different attributes supported by the different tags. Right? So here, let's say for the p tag, I want to use one attribute as the style attribute. I want to style my p element. So here I go and use the style attribute. So this will be my attribute name. Right? As I said, whenever we go and define the HTML attribute, we define the HTML attribute in the key and value form, where we specify the key as the name and value is the attribute value. So here, let's say I want to change the color of my p tag. So I'm putting the style here, and the attribute name that I am using here is color. For example, let's say I want to use the blue color here. Right? As soon as I save my changes, you can see that the color has been changed to blue. Similarly, you can go and specify the attribute for the h1 tag as well. For example, let's say for the h1 tag, I want to use another attribute where I want to change the font size, or let's say I want to change the font family to this one. Right? You can see here my font pattern has been changed. So you can use different types of attributes to the element. It's not like you have to use, you can use, or you have to use only one attribute. You can use multiple attributes as well. Right? Let me also put one of the example for the attribute that we can use, because very frequently we use this attribute with the image tag. Right? Image is again one of the HTML element that we use to display the image. So whenever you are using the image element, it is mandatory that you have to go and use this source attribute. Whenever you are using the image, it is mandatory that you should go and use the source attribute. And another attribute that has been supported is the alt attribute. So what is the alt attribute and the source attribute here? Source attribute where you can go and specify the location of the image. So for example, let's say here I go and put the location of the image as Salesforce image. Let me open this. Let me get the copy this image address, and I am putting that image address here. Let's go and check whether that image is available or not. You can see here image is available on my HTML page. What I have done, I have just copied the image address from here and I have pasted that image address in the source. Right? Now in case, for example, you don't have the access of the image that you are retrieving, then in such scenario, if you want to show the message to the user, then we go and specify that message in the alt section. For example, image loading is failed. Right? Let's say in case the image is not coming up, then you want to show the message to the end user, then you go and define that message with the alt attribute. So for the demo purpose, I'm just changing the address here. So let me go and change this address. I'm just converting this image address into the bad address to show the alt message. Let me go to the end and quite big address. Okay. Let me just remove something from in between and go and refresh the page. You can see here, as I have modified the image address, image is not loading, and that's why whatever the message that we have specified in the alt, that message is coming up. Right? If you don't go and specify the message, user will never know that why the image is not loading. right? Most of the times we populate this alt message dynamically. For example, in case you have to populate that image is not loading because of the network issue, or the image is not loading because of the access issue, you can definitely go and populate this alt section dynamically. But it always considered a good practice that you should go and use the alt attribute with the image attribute. Again, I'll be talking about the few more attributes that we frequently use in the HTML file, right? So this is how you go and always define the attributes in your HTML file. Always make sure that attribute is the combination of name as well as the value. So let's go back to the PPT again. Before that, let me go and check in case we do have any questions. Okay. Let's go and talk about the next item, that is the block level element and the inline HTML element. So these elements are basically divided into two categories. First category will be referred as the block element, and second category will be referred as the inline HTML element. The difference in between the both different types of element here is block elements always starts with the new line, and it takes the full width of the web page from left to right. Again, I am repeating, block element always starts with the new line. It takes the full width of web page from left to right. That is block element. Inline element, it does not starts with the new line, and it takes the width as per the requirement. Inline element, it does not starts with the new line, and it takes the width as per the requirement, right? Very frequently we have to go and decide whether we should go for the block element or the inline element. So if you go and check any HTML element, they always specify that this HTML element is either a block level element or inline HTML element. Block level elements can contain both block level as well as the inline elements. However, inline elements are mainly used with the other element. What this point says that, for example, let's say in your block element, generally we go and include the inline HTML elements, right? So block elements can contain the inline HTML elements, but inline HTML elements, they cannot contain the block level elements. Right? Vice versa is not true here. Block level element, they can contain the inline HTML elements, but this inline HTML elements, they cannot contain the block level elements. Few of the example of the block level elements are like your div tag, p tag, h1 and h6. And few of the examples of the inline HTML element is your anchor tag, right, which will be help you to provide the uh, clickable section. Another one is the image tag and the span tag, right? They will not start with the new line, and they will take the width as per the requirement. Let's go and check both of these elements also in our VS Code. So here I'll go and define the multiple blocks. Let me also open the browser file here, right? I'm correcting the image so that the correct image will be loaded. Now, the next thing that I will be doing here is I will first show you how we can use the block level element. As I said, this h1 is the block level element. This p tag is the block level element. Similarly, you can also go and create the different divisions on your page by using this block level element. For example, let's say I am creating the first division here, right? It will take the complete one section of your page. Basically, we use the division tag to divide the page into the multiple sections, right? So that is nothing but the div block. Div block, it will take the complete section of the page, right? So it will be referred as the block level element. It will be referred as the block level element. You can use the block level element inside another block level element, right? P tag is again nothing but a block level element which we are using inside the div tag, which is again the block level element. Another example of the block level element here is, for example, if you go and change this, okay, let me save this so that the text will be printed here. You can see we are getting the block level element here. Now, let's say next to the p tag, I want to print something, right? Next to the p tag, I want to print something. How I can do that? Immediately next to the p tag, I want to print something. For example, if I go and type h1 here, let's say I'm typing h1 here and putting a hello, what will happen? You can see here it is coming immediately into the next line, but I want that this hello should come next to this block level element line or in the same line, right? I cannot use the hello here. What I have to use then? I have to go and use here the span tag, which is nothing but the inline tag, right? What we have to do here is, here we should go and use the span tag. So here I am using the span tag inside the p tag. You can see here my hello is coming immediately into the same line. This is possible because your span tag is the inline tag. This is possible because your span tag is the inline tag. Now, for example, if you want to provide the different CSS to this one, let's say I want to provide the different CSS to the, let's say I want to give this one as the brown color. Okay, you can see as of now everything is coming into the brown, but I want to give a different color to the hello. That is possible by using this inline element. So here I want to give the color as, let's say yellow. Sorry, let me use the style attribute here because we are not covered the class attribute. I'm just using the style attribute for now, right? I'll be covered when I'll be covering the class attribute. We will revisit this example. So here I am using the color attribute and I am giving the color here as yellow. You can see that, okay, not sure that it is correctly visible, or let me choose some another color here. Let me use this purple color, right? You can see here both the colors are different. How this can be possible? This can be possible with the help of the inline element that we have used with this block level element, right? That is used with the block level element. So this span element will be referred as the inline element. Uh, So again, I'll quickly revise one more time. What is inline element and the block level element? Block level element always starts with the new line, right? If you check here, H1 is the block level element. P is the block level element. Division is the block level element. They will always start with the new line on your web page, right? Moreover, they will take the full width of your web page. Moreover, they will take the full width of your web page. Now, in between the block element, if you want to adjust the text, you have to go for the inline element. Inline element, they does not start with the new line, and they will adjust the width as per the requirement. And they will adjust the width as per the requirement. So inline elements are majorly used with the block level element. That's what we have done here. We have used this inline element with the block element, where P is the block element and span is the inline element, right? We have used this inline element with this block element. Like this, you can go and explore the image inline element and the span inline element. Right? Because I'm covering this section because most of the times when we go to the SLDS classes offered by the Salesforce, people will not understand how to modify this class. Right? They will get confused whether they should go and remove the div tag or they should go and remove the span tag. And the whole confusion comes because they are not clear with the concept what is the block level element and what is the inline HTML element. Right? So always remember this thumb rule. Block level elements always starts with the new line and inline elements always starts with the existing line, right? It will adjust the width as per your requirement. I hope I'm making myself clear. Sai Reddy have one question. What is inline elements? I believe Sai, I have covered this multiple times. Let me know if the question is still open. I will cover it one more time. Let's move to the next slide. So these are the frequently used HTML5 elements. Again, based on my experience, these are the few elements that we frequently used in the Lightning Web Components. The first element will be the H1 to H6 element. This element will give you the different types of heading, where H1 it will give you the biggest heading and H6 it will give you the headings in the small size. Right? So heading tags will be varying from H1 to H6. You just have to go and use this tag, something like this. For example, if I had to go and define the 6 different tags with H1 to H6, right? Let me go and put it here. So this is the H1 tag that I have put. You can see the color, you can see the text size. If I go and put the same text in the H2, for example, let me just copy the same text and put it into the H2. You can see that how the length is varying. This is H1, this is H2. If I go and change this to H3 now, right? You can see here it has been changed. If I go and change this to H4, you can see the length is getting slower down. So from H1, similarly, from H1 to H6, you can use this H1, you can use these heading tags to have the different kind of a heading or have the different size of the headings. Another tag that we do have here is the P tag. P tag is referred as the paragraph tag. The advantage with the paragraph tag is it adds a single line before and after the P element. Right? You manually don't have to go and add the lines in case you are using the P tag. P tag will automatically add the single line before and after the P element. For example, let's say here we are using this P tag. Let me again open this HTML file. Right? We are putting this P tag. You can see here one line is added before this P tag, one line is added after this P tag. If I go and add another P tag here, sorry, if I go and add another P tag here, you can see that one line is added above the P tag, one line is added below the P tag, right? So P tag will be considered as a paragraph tag, which will help you to add the single line before and after the P element. Another tag that we do have here is the division tag. Division tag defines a division or a section in the HTML document. Whenever you have to divide your HTML page into the different sections, we go for the div tag. The next one is the anchor tag or the A tag. A tag stands for the anchor tag. Anchor tag will be helpful to define a hyperlink. Anchor tag will be helpful to define the hyperlink. This anchor tag have a required attribute. Now I hope you guys can correlate the term because we have already covered the HTML attributes now. So this A tag have a required attribute. And what is the required attribute? href. What is the required attribute? href. This attribute will define the destination link. This attribute will define the destination link. Let me put an example for the anchor tag as well. So whenever you have to use the anchor tag, you also open the file here. For example, let's say here I want to put the anchor tag. So I am putting here the A. A stands for the anchor tag, right? If you check this documentation as well, they are clearly mentioning that whenever you are using the anchor tag, you have to go and use the href attribute. So here you should go and use the href attribute. Here you should go and use the href attribute. Now in the href, you can go and provide the link. For example, let's say here I have to go and provide this trailhead link. So I am putting here the link of the trailhead. Here I am putting the link of the trailhead, right? And here let's say I'm putting the text as trailhead. Here I am putting the text as trailhead. So what will happen here? I have created one tag on my page on the click of which user can be directly navigated to the trailhead. So for example, if I am clicking on this page, you can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Right? You can see that I am navigated to the trailhead account. Again, there are multiple attributes available in the anchor tag. For example, if you have to navigate to the separate tab, you don't want that the page should go and open up in the same tab. You can use n number of different types of attributes with this anchor tag. Again, once you go and start googling it, you will get all the different attributes available for the anchor tag. Right? The next one that we do have is the image tag that we have already covered. Right? Image tag is used to insert the images in the HTML document. These are the few tags that we very frequently use. In case there are more than these tags that I will be covering down the line. Right? Let's go and move towards the next topic now. That is the data attribute. Right? In LWC, we heavily use this data attribute. So what is this data attribute here? This data attribute, it is used to store the custom data that will be private to your page. Right? This data attribute, it will be used to store the custom data. For example, if you go and check this attribute, right here, whenever you are defining the data attribute, only mandatory thing here is you have to go and make sure that you are starting here with the data. Attribute name, you can give any name here. Like here, I have given the name as family member. You can also give your name as an attribute too. It's completely fine. Right? And after the attribute, you should go and specify the value, because we discussed that whenever we are defining the attribute, we have to make sure that we are using the name as well as the value. So this attribute is a special attribute, that is the data attribute, right? And here, by adding this family member, I am giving this name to this data attribute. In the LWC documentation, you might have seen that they are using the data ID or the data name or the data set, right? These are the different data attributes that they are using, right? Again, you can give a value to the data attribute. For example, here I have given the value as spouse, and here this is the value, that is the Nidhi. So what this attribute says that Nidhi is nothing but the spouse of the family member. Kian is nothing but the son of the family member. Chaya is nothing but a mother of the family member. So whenever we have to store any private data that is specific to the page or an application, we can use this data attribute. We can access this data attribute in the JavaScript. Right? Whenever we have to access any kind of a data in the JavaScript, we can access these data attributes as well. Again, how to access the data attributes in the JavaScript, that we will be covering down the line. There's a concept of DOM selector that we have to understand first before we understand how we can access these attributes in the JavaScript file. Right? So you can give any name to your data attribute here. Right? You can use this data attribute with any HTML element. You can use with P element or the div element or the span element. You can use this with any different types of elements. Right? Only thing that you have to make sure, as I said, whenever you are using the data attribute should not contain any uppercase letter. Right? It should not contain any uppercase letter. That is the first thumb rule. Next one is it must be at least one character long after the prefix data. You cannot use only the data here. You have to make sure that it should be one character long at least after the data. So after the data hyphen, it is mandatory that you either go and put the ID or the family member or your name, but you have to always put something after the data in case you are using the data attribute. These are the few rules that you have to follow whenever you are using the data attributes. Right? Again, in the JavaScript section also I'll be covering how we can define the data attributes and how we can access the data attributes in the JavaScript file. The next topic for today is the CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. As I said, CSS will be helpful whenever you want to beautify your site. For example, if you want to change the background color, or if you want to change the font size, or if you want to change the font family, or if you want to make your site responsive, right? In such scenarios, CSS will be very helpful. When I say responsive means, in case you are creating one website and you want that your website must be visible on the HTML, or sorry, your website must be visible on the desktop or on the mobile or on the tablet, you can make your website responsive by using the CSS. Right? Let's go and explore what exactly is CSS. As I said, CSS will be used to define the styles for your web page. CSS will be used to define the styles for your web page. Without CSS, this is how your website will look. Without CSS, this is how your website will look. HTML will add everything, right? But it will not beautify your page, right? It will just define the structure for your page. So in case you want to include the design, you want to break your HTML into the different layouts, you want to add the variations into your web page, you have to go for the CSS. You have to go for the CSS. So basically, whenever you are defining the CSS, CSS consists of two parts. One is the selector and second is the declaration block. CSS rule always consists of two parts. One is the selector and second one is the declaration block. Again, there are multiple types of selectors that I will be covering down the line, right? But how the declaration block will be formed. Declaration block will always have two things. One is the property and second is the value. Declaration block will always have two things. One is the property and second is the value. Again, in one declaration block, you can put multiple declarations. So for example, here, this is the first declaration and this is the second declaration. In one declaration block, you can put multiple declaration and each declaration will be having a property as well as the value. So whenever you are defining the CSS rule, you have to make sure that you are putting the selector. After that, you are creating the declaration block. In the declaration block, you can go and define the multiple declarations, right? And you have to make sure that all the declarations will be ending with semicolon. You have to make sure that all the declarations that you are putting, they must be ending with semicolon. So in the CSS rule, the selector will point to the HTML element that you want to style. In the CSS rule, in the CSS rule, the selector will point to the HTML element that you want to style. In this example, I want to style the H1 element. What if you want to style the P element? That also you can do, right? If I go back to my VS Code again, here what we are doing, basically we are providing the CSS. If you go and check this, this is again one way of providing the CSS. This is referred as the inline CSS, right? So here I want to provide the color to my text, for example. So I have put this CSS here. So this is the selector. P is the selector and this is the declaration block. This is the declaration block. This is the one declaration block, right? In case I want to go and define another declaration block, I will go and put the semicolon here and I go and write down another declaration, let's say as the font family, and I can go and put the font family as 12 pixel, right? Let's go and check how this output is rendering on the UI. So we have added this on welcome from Take Journey with Ankit. Let's go and increase this font size to 35 pixels just to have the changes visible. I am increasing this font size to 35. Sorry, I have put the font family. It should be font size. And I'm saving this. You can see here, I am applying the CSS to increase the width. So this way of applying the CSS is referred as the inline CSS. This way of applying the CSS is referred as the inline CSS. So you have to make sure that whenever you are defining the declaration, you always put the property and the value, right? Here, if you see, this color is the property and this is the value. This font size is the property and this is the value. This is the one declaration block. Each declaration block will be separated with the semicolon. So this is nothing but the CSS rule. This is nothing but the CSS rule. Let me check if we do have any questions. Okay, I believe we are clear for now. Let's move further. So there are different ways of applying the CSS. There are different ways of applying the CSS. First one is referred as the inline styling. Second one is referred as the internal styling. and the last one is referred as the external styling. What is inline styling that we have already discussed? Whenever you are putting the style inside the tag or inside the HTML element, it is referred as the inline styling. Whenever you are putting the HTML, whenever you are putting the CSS styling inside the HTML element, it is referred as the inline styling. Right? This kind of inline styling, it will apply the CSS directly to the HTML element. It will be good for the quick and the simple styling. This approach will be good for the quick and the simple styling, because in this approach you don't have to maintain the separate CSS file. But in the long run, or whenever you are actually building the real-time project, this type of styling is not recommended. Whenever you are actually building the real-time project, this type of styling is not recommended. Now the question comes, why? The reason being, for example, let's say in our HTML page, we are using 15 different p tags. Right? On my HTML page, let's say I'm using the 50 different p tags. Then I have to apply the similar styling to all these 50 p tags. I have to copy the exact same style code and paste it on all 50 HTML elements. I have to copy the exact same code and put it on the all 50 HTML elements. So in the long run, this kind of styling will be a bit challenging. Right? For example, if the client comes and client have asked that they want the paragraph to be formatted in some other way, then you have to go and modify all the 50 HTML elements. And it will be very challenging to go and perform the styling in this way. But in case you are learning the CSS and you want to immediately see the changes, you don't want to create a separate CSS file, definitely you can use this approach. But for the bootcamp, again, I will not recommend that you should go and use this approach. Another way of styling is the internal styling. Internal styling means you go and define the style tag inside the HTML file itself. In the internal styling, what will happen? You go and define the style tag inside the HTML file itself. You do not have to go and write down the separate CSS file. Right? You can go and write down the styling inside the HTML file directly. Right? So how to do that? Let me go into the VS Code and show you how we can do that. Again, I'll be creating another folder for this one, for this demo. Let me give the folder name. Sorry, let me go and create this folder outside. I'm giving the folder name as CSS demo. Let me pull this folder out. Sorry. Or let it be. Let's not create a new one. It's going to be time taking. So what I will do here is, here I will go and put one file, and I am naming that file as the here in the internal styling, we do not have to go and create the separate file. So I can use the same one for the demo purpose. So what we have to do here is, let me go and close this. What we have to do for the internal styling. In the internal styling, what we can do here is, in the header section itself, we can write down the CSS. In the header section itself, we can write down the CSS. To do that, here we should go and put the style tag inside the head of the HTML file. Now here you can go and write down the CSS. Now here you can go and write down the CSS. For example, let's say I want to provide the formatting to the H1 tag. For example, I want to provide the formatting to the H1 tag. So here you should go and write down the H1, something like this. And inside this, you can go and write down your CSS. So this is your selector, right? This is your declaration block. Just now we discussed the CSS rule. So this is your selector and this is your declaration block. In that, you can go and write down the different types of styling. So for example, one styling that I want to do here is, I want to apply this font family. So let me cut out this font family from here and put it here. Let me start writing it from the scratch. It will be very easy to do that. So let me go and put here the font family, and here I am putting the value as, let's say, this one, whatever the font family that I have to define. So I am removing the style from here. I am removing the style from here, right? So in my page, h1 tag is used, I believe, at two different locations. This is the one. Let me also remove the styling from here too. Sorry, this is the one. Okay, let's go and define one more h1 tag. So on my on my HTML page, we are using the two h1 tags. Let me go and comment all the other things for now. Let me rephrase this. Right, you can see here I do have the two h1 tags available on my file. Right, take journey with Ankit and the take journey with Ankit, and they both are using applying the same CSS. Now in case I want to apply the another CSS, what I should go and do here is I should go and put the semicolon in the end, right? And I can go and write down the another CSS here. For example, let's say I want to change the color to blue. So I can go here and put the color to blue. You can see here the same CSS is applied to the multiple h1 tags. Another CSS, let's say, that I want to apply here is I want to make the font weight as bold. I want to bold this text. So you can see here the text is bold. This is the advantage of the inline styling, where you go and put the style inside the HTML file. In case you guys worked on the Visualforce pages, right? In the Visualforce page, we used to do the inline styling, right? Where we go and write down the CSS inside the Visualforce page. But again, our LWC does not recommend that we should go and do it. Again, in the LWC framework, it is not even possible that you should go and write down the internal style. But I want you guys to be familiar what is internal styling in case you are going over the LWC documentation. The another way of styling that I'll give you a quick overview and we'll discuss more in detail this one tomorrow. That is the external styling. In the external styling, what we do is we go and create a separate file. In the external styling, we go and create the separate file and we'll name it as the CSS file. We'll name it with the extension as the .css file. We go and write down the complete CSS code inside that file. And the next thing that we do in the external styling is we go and link this CSS file with the HTML file. And to perform that linkage, we have to use the link element here. To perform that linkage, we have to use the link element. We have to go and specify the relationship. It is of type style sheet. The type is text slash CSS, and we have to also specify the href as the style.css or whatever the name that you have given to your CSS file. So how to do that linkage? Let me quickly show you on the VS Code. So let's say here I am creating another file and I want to name this file as the style.css. Again, you can give any name. Let's say I can give the name as take journey with ankit.css as well. It's not mandatory that you have to go and give the exact same name. Now in this file, you can go and write down your CSS, whatever the CSS that you have to write. For example, I am taking out the CSS from here, right? And I am putting my CSS inside the file that we have just created. So again, the selector followed by the font family followed by the wet. As of now, we have not linked the file. So you can see that the CSS is not applied. The color is not blue. Now, next thing that we have to do here is we have to go to the HTML file and we have to set the link between the CSS file and the HTML file. To set that link in between both the files, you should go and use the link attribute here or link element here. With the link element, you have to use the rel, and in the rel, you have to pass the value as style sheet. You have to also use another attribute that is type, and here you should go and pass the name type as text.css. And another attribute that you have to use here is the href. And in the href, you have to pass the CSS file name. So I'm copying the CSS file name from here and you have to go and pass the CSS file name, something like this. As soon as you have set the linkage in between both of these files, you can see that the CSS is applied and it is visible on your HTML page. You can see that the CSS is applied and it is visible on your HTML page. This is how we go and apply the external styling. So quick revision, inline styling, we go and write down the style attribute along with the HTML element. Internal styling, we go and write down the styles inside the HTML file. This is something that we used to do in the past on the Visualforce pages. External styling, where we go and create the new file and we set the link between the HTML file and the CSS file. This is the kind of a pattern that we follow on the LWC as well. Again, in LWC, we do not have to manually go and link the file. The only mandatory thing is whatever your LWC component name, your CSS file must follow the same component name. That is the only mandatory thing. Again, we'll be talking in more detail how to apply the CSS to the LWC component when we go and discuss that section. But here, whenever you are working on the native HTML file, you have to make sure that you are linking that with the CSS file by using this link attribute here. Right? Let me go and check if we do have any questions in the chat box. So Sai Reddy have one question. In case two styles defined, for example, let's say you have defined the inline styling and the external styling. Okay, he is asking which one will take the priority. So in these scenarios, your inline styling will always take the priority. In such scenarios, your inline styling will always take the priority. In case you are using the inline styling or you are using the external styling, you have to make sure that the inline styling will always take the priority here. Right? But as I said, inline styling is not recommended. So in case you are working on the real-time project, although you have to apply one single CSS attribute, make sure that you are doing in the external styling and not in an inline styling, because inline styling will be very challenging to maintain in the long run. Right? Tomorrow we'll be discussing more about the CSS part. I have to go and talk about the different types of CSS selector that we'll be discussing tomorrow. And next to that, we'll be talking more about the JavaScript section as well. So from the day 3 to day 10 in our bootcamp tracker, we do have the placeholder to discuss the JavaScript. Let me know how you find the today's bootcamp session in the chat box. You can also let me know on the comment section or also on the LinkedIn as well. Whether you find this session helpful or not, whether you got some new learning in this session or not. In case you guys do have any questions, please let me know in the chat box. Uh, SFDC Udemy, I cannot see your question. Okay, I see that. What is the difference between the attribute like ID, class, and title in HTML, and what is their use? Okay, each attribute have their own use in the HTML. So there is a question, what is the difference between the attributes like ID, class, and the title in HTML, and what is their use? Okay, so ID attribute, it is used to define the unique ID on your HTML pages. Class attribute we use to define the CSS classes, and the title attribute that we use whenever you hover over any HTML element, what title you want to see. For that reason, we can use the title attribute. Right? To know more about these attributes, I'll recommend you to go over the W3 schools where they have given the single line definition of all these different attributes. But just to make clear, each attribute have their own usage in the HTML file. Another question from the Sai Reddy is, what is UL and LI at the data attribute? UI will stands for the unordered list, and the li will stands for the list item. Again, these are the different HTML elements that we do have, where ul elements will stands for the unordered list and li will be the different list items under that unordered list. Another question is, Okay, thank you, Mukhia, for your kind words. Uh, okay. In case no one have any question, we can stop today here itself, and let's continue from tomorrow on the JavaScript part. Thank you all. Have a good time.